Hi guys, Exeter Rider, hope you're well. Now this week I'm going to be talking about 3 reasons why you should buy a Chinese manufactured motorcycle and 3 reasons why you shouldn't. Let's start off right from the beginning. So Chinese motorcycles have got a bad rap over the years, and in my opinion for very good reason. And years ago, I'm talking 20 years ago, I remember when Chinese bikes of all different makes and descriptions started coming onto the market, and they were terrible. There's no sort of dilly-dallying about it. They were terrible, awfully made in most cases. But over the years, they have got much better than what they used to be. There's no doubt about it. They're still not perfect, but I would say that they're definitely on the way to be in the way that they should be. So first of all, I mean, the price of these bikes are much cheaper than your top 4 well-known brands. For example, your Hondas, your Yamahas. I won't put KTM into the pot for reasons we'll find out in a second. But yeah, overall they are catching up and they are becoming more and more popular. And the quality is getting much better, while still keeping that good price point. So why would you want to buy a Chinese motorcycle? Well, you could be a young 17-year-old that's just trying to get on the road to commute to work or college. You could be older in life and you just want to try motorcycling, but you don't want to spend silly money because you do just want to try it. And this is a good entry into motorcycling when you consider, for this in this terrain that I'm riding now, is £3,000 for a lesser spec brand, you know, one in the top brand, in the Hondas or the Yamahas. You're looking around £4,500. So it's about £1,500 cheaper to buy a bike like this than it is to buy one from the top brands. There's no doubt about it that the Hondas and the Yamahas have got a better finish on them. I'm not going to deny that. But is it worth another £1,500? For me, I don't think it is. If it was me and I just got on the road, because you have to remember, when you're a learner rider and when you do your CBT, you're generally only going to have that bike for 1 or 2 years. And it could be argued that, well, what about when I sell it in 1 or 2 years? Is the depreciation going to be a lot more? And from my experience, there isn't really a huge amount in it. You know, let's say a Honda will depreciate by 25%. A Sinus terrain like I'm on now will probably depreciate 30%, 35%. So there's not a huge amount in it. And as I say, you are going to be moving on from a 125. That is just a fact of life. A lot of people say that these bikes rust a lot easier. I kind of agree to that to an extent, but the amount of 125s that I see left out on the pavement in the rain, no cover on them, and then they're normally the people who complain that the bikes are rusting all the time. So for the price, I think there's a lot to be said, if you're a learner rider, to buying a Chinese manufactured motorcycle and saving yourself £1,500, for example. There is a lot to be said for it. And the finish is still more than good enough. It really is. So that was the first one. Now I'm going to take the politics of China out of it. I'm not going to include that in this thing, because I know a lot of people have political reasons why they wouldn't buy Chinese motorcycles, but I am not going down that rabbit hole, I can assure you. Second reason to buy a Chinese made motorcycle is the spec that you get with these. And this bike I'm on now is basically has a Yamaha stroke Suzuki engine in it. It's licensed by them, and so again, that gives you good peace of mind. It certainly rides like any other big branded motorcycle. And with this particular bike, I get a decent screen, I get crash bars, panniers on the back, a top box, which yes is a little bit small, granted, but still get it. And it's quite handy actually being able to do your errands and load up the panniers and the top box in behind there. Still got the LCD dash down there as well. And yeah, overall the specification of these bikes are normally pretty high. It's not like you have to buy a, I don't know, a Honda and then you have to put on saddlebags or any boxes or a top box, you know, spend another £150 on that. It's all ready to go within that £3,000. So again, I guess that goes back to the cost a little bit there, but you do get high specs bikes when you buy these type of bikes. And also spare parts is the main reason for number 2, reason that you should buy a Chinese made motorcycle. Now for example, I'm going to cross over to the garage now and I'm going to show you one of the parts which I broke on my Honda NC750. And this is what I'm talking about here. This piece here, which sits on the, let me grab you a second, sits on the side of the bike here, which I damaged when I come off on the ice. Guess how much that is? That bit of plastic. That's all it is. Nothing on the back. £350 for that. 350 quid for that bit of plastic. Now they are quite readily available, which is the bonus to Japanese made bikes and the more well-known brands. But here's another example, just for this small plate down here, which I damaged as well. That little plate, how much do you think? Let's play guess the price game. For that small little plate there, which is only about 8mm thick, is £55 just for a small cover. Crazy. So that's another, do you want me to give you another example? I might as well, haven't I? Now in here on this BMW we've got two small bearings, one that side, one the other side. Those small bearings are £90 each. And when you consider the other say Chinese made motorcycles, for example the side fairing on the Sinister Terrain is about £25 and a new set of bearings are £10 each. You know, that's a huge difference, isn't it? So that's another plus point to buying a Chinese motorcycle. Sad but true. So as you can see, if I got the same for this Sinister Terrain and bash this smaller panel here, then we're looking about £30, which is, you know, affordable, isn't it? Not only that, but I don't have to go down the main dealers to buy that part. I can just go onto Synesys website and buy it direct. Kind of cuts out the middleman, really. So in that respect, you know, if you do happen to damage your Chinese made motorcycle, then it is going to be cheaper for the parts. Even bearings, you know, bearings are just a matter of about £15 each, whereas the bearings for my BMW are about £90 each. So again, for a younger learner rider, it does make a lot of sense. So it's not only those sort of spare parts, but it's also the aftermarket accessories are going to be a lot cheaper as well, such as the back boxes. The back box on this particular bike is £40. If I want to upgrade to a 40 litre box, it's going to be £80. And then I can carry the helmet around then. So I'm going to pop in town to New Look a second. So yeah, you get all that for £3 grand, including the top boxes. So again, you know, spare parts, if you damage it, then it's going to be a lot easier to repair. Yeah, so number 2 was the specifications that you get with these bikes, and again, it's all well built. I don't see many problems with that. It's all powder coated nicely. If you put it under cover and look after it, then it will look after you. I can't tell you what it's going to be like long term, but people have put some big miles on these bikes and they've always been alright. It's almost like a mini GS, that. Okay, so I'm going to pop in town and take this back for the missus, and I'm going to talk about 3 reasons why you have to think twice about buying a Chinese motorcycle. Okay, let's start off with the travelling side of things. So first of all, if you're going to go travelling with a Chinese made motorcycle, bear in mind that when I say Chinese manufactured motorcycle, I mean that the parts are manufactured in China and then shipped over here, bearing in mind again that they are licensed by Suzuki and Yamaha in most cases. But you have to think about if you do go travelling or go some distance on the bike and you get a problem, say you're abroad or some such thing, then it does make it a lot more difficult to get the parts if they haven't got a big dealership abroad, and you might have to wait for the parts to come from, you know, this country or whatever. In some cases that you can actually interchange brands with the parts. For example, some of the parts on my Sinus, Yamaha actually fit the same parts, so you can sort of interchange them and it's okay, but in general you do need to try and stick to the same parts and same manufactured, machined, CNC'd parts. So that's something to consider. And also the metals that the Chinese use are generally a bit softer. For example, you'll find that the bearings tend to wear out a bit quicker on Chinese manufactured bikes, because they are the materials they use they do cut corners on in many cases, from my experience. That's just something else to look out for. I'm going to pop in New Look and I'll be back in a second. And let's talk about the last reason why you should perhaps think twice about buying a Chinese motorcycle, and I'm not Chinese manufactured motorcycle, should I say. And it's not really a relevant point, this, but I had to have a third one, so but just the longevity and how long the parts are going to be available for. That's another thing to think about. You know, what you don't want, like some of the old Hyosung, they were selling the bikes but you couldn't get the parts anymore. I'm not saying Sinus were doing that, so don't take any of this disregarding to Sinus, but that's what used to happen a long time ago. But if you're waiting for a part from one of the companies, let's say Lexmoto for example, and it's on a slow boat from China, then you really don't need that, do you? You don't want a 6-week wait while your bike isn't usable. Whereas if it's one of the bigger brands, yes, the parts are generally off the shelf from many different places around the UK. But yeah, so that's 3 reasons for buying a bike. I know the with the reasons not to, there was a couple which sort of blended in. The last 2 sort of blended into each other. So anyway, there you go. But overall, you know, would I buy a Chinese bike? Yeah, any day. You know, I mean, let's face it, the BMW 900XR, that's a Chinese made engine. A lot of the KTM parts are made in China now. So you're buying it anyway, but it's just people get this thing in their mind with the badges. Like, they'll say, oh yeah, we'll buy a BMW that's Chinese manufactured, but we won't buy a Sinus, for example, which is crazy really, because quite often they're made side by side in the factory. Same as the BMW 310. Yes, it's a bit of a funny sounding engine. It's made in India, and so what? It makes no difference. They turned out to be really good bikes. Same as Royal Enfield. I got a lot of grief from that being made in India when they first come out with the Interceptor, and people were saying, oh, I ain't buying one of them. The last time I checked, I think they're doing pretty well. So yeah, I don't think you can be too snobby about the brands, and there's a lot of good reasons, certainly for somebody who's starting out and just going to have a 125 for a couple years. There's a lot of good reasons to buy a Chinese motorcycle, mainly down to cost, and you're only going to have it for, you know, not very long time. So this rides really, really well, this Sinister Terrain. It rides brilliantly, it really does. The suspension's good on it, seat's good on it, it's all solid. I've given it some grief off-road as well, and overall I think it's a cracking little 125, I really do. But again, you know, if you mention Sinister to some people, then they just, you know, turn their nose up at it. Maybe some people have had bad experiences with some of the bigger brand bikes. You know, years ago, 20 years ago, as I say, I wouldn't have bought one, not in a million years. But things have moved on. And looking at the finish of this bike, you know, it's not any different than any other big brand. Enough said, that's the end of the video. So thank you very much for joining me. I hope if you've got any comments and about what we've been talking about today, then please do tap away down below and I'll try and answer them. I know it's a bit of a funny video, this. I mean, it's a bit like when I do videos on electric bikes. You know, there's a lot of people sort of comment on that, and often it's almost like the Antichrist, like, you know. But yeah, I hope it's been of interest. Hope it's cleared some things up for you. That's just my opinions. Well, I say my opinions, I'm just trying to be devil's advocate, really. But thank you very much for watching. Have a good week, whatever you're up to.